2 centuries after the execution of Juan Severino Mallari, one question still lingers. Why would a Catholic priest become a killer? When Spanish authorities interrogated Mallari in 1827, they expected to hear a confession. What they did not expect was his explanation. According to historical records, Mallari claimed that his actions were connected to the death of his mother. He believed she had been bewitched, and he believed that killing could somehow relieve the torment he felt after losing her. To modern ears, the claims sound unbelievable. But in the early 19th century, belief in curses and witchcraft was not uncommon in many communities across the Philippines. Was Mallari truly convinced that supernatural forces had taken his mother's life? Or was this explanation an attempt to justify years of calculated violence? Historians still debate the answer, because the more investigators studied the case, the more complicated the story became. Juan Severino Mallari was not a bandit hiding in the mountains. He was a priest, a man trusted with confession, guidance, and spiritual authority. And that is what makes the case so disturbing. The crimes themselves were shocking, but the deeper mystery lies in the mind of the man who committed them. Was Mallari insane? Or did he simply take advantage of the immense power that priests held during the Spanish colonial period? In this episode, we explore the psychological and historical forces behind one of the most disturbing crimes in Philippine history. Because understanding what happened in Bacolod requires looking beyond the killing themselves. It requires examining the world in which they happened. When Spanish authorities questioned Juan Severino Mallari, they believed they were dealing with a serial killer. But some accounts suggest something else entirely. Was he a calculating murderer? Or a man who had lost his mind? The execution of Juan Severino Mallari in 1828 brought a shocking chapter in Philippine colonial history to a close. But his death did not end the questions surrounding his crimes. In the towns of Bacolod, Pampanga, the discovery of buried remains had shaken both the community and the Spanish colonial authorities. For many residents, the most disturbing part of the case was not only the number of victims, it was the identity of the killer, a Catholic priest, a man entrusted with confession, guidance, and moral authority. As investigators began reviewing records and testimonies, they tried to understand how such crimes could have occurred over several years without immediate detection. In the early 19th century, the Philippines was governed by Spanish colonial administration. Local law enforcement systems were limited, and much of the authority within towns rested with religious institutions. Priests were often among the most powerful figures in a community. They maintained parish records, advised families, and acted as moral leaders. Because of this, accusations against a priest were rare, and suspicion often took time to surface. Historical accounts indicate that the investigation into Mallari intensified only after repeated disappearances could no longer be ignored. Witnesses described individuals who had last been seen near church grounds. Some had reportedly gone to meet the priest for confession or spiritual counsel. When authorities began examining the area's surrounding the parish. They eventually uncovered burial sites connected to property under his supervision. These discoveries forced the colonial government to take action. Mallari was arrested in 1827 and transferred for formal questioning under Spanish jurisdiction. Under interrogation, he confessed to multiple killings. According to historical records, he claimed that the deaths of his victims were connected to his belief that his mother had been bewitched. Some historians suggest he believed killing would relieve the suffering he felt after her death. Others argued that the explanation may have been an attempt to claim mental instability. Regardless of motive, the confession confirmed what authorities had begun to suspect. The killings had occurred over several years, and the trust placed in Mallari as a priest had allowed him access to victims who did not suspect danger. His trial took place under the Spanish colonial justice system, which handled serious crimes through military and civil tribunals. After reviewing the evidence and confession, the court sentenced him to death. In 1828, the sentence was carried out in Manila. Mallari was executed by garrote, a device used during Spanish rule to perform capital punishment. With the turning of the iron collar, the life of Juan Severino Mallari ended. But the case left a lasting mark on Philippine history. He is widely remembered as the first documented Filipino serial killer. More than the number of victims, the story endures because of the betrayal of trust involved. A priest who was meant to guide the community instead became its greatest threat. Today, historians continue to study the Mallari case as a reflection of colonial society. It reveals the immense authority held by religious leaders during the Spanish period. It also shows how communities struggled to confront crimes committed by figures they were taught to trust. The story of Juan Severino Mallari is not simply a tale of violence. It is a reminder that authority without accountability can become dangerous, and that history sometimes hides its darkest chapters in places people once believed to be sacred.